Hello and welcome back to the Epic Counseling Podcast. I'd like to start with something that many of us have probably experienced. There's a conversation you know you need to have, but somehow today, never quite feels like that right day. Tomorrow seems better though. Mind you, tomorrow doesn't exist because it changes its name to today at midnight every day. Next week sounds easier. Yeah, I'll have that conversation next week. And before you know it, months have passed. Today's conversation isn't about becoming an expert communicator. It's simply about exploring a few things that can sometimes help difficult conversations go a little bit better. You might recognize some of them, you might disagree with others. Either way, I hope they leave you thinking about your own conversations a little differently. One thing is that many conversations become difficult long before they actually happen. We rehearse them, we imagine every possible response, we predict how the other person will react. Sometimes we become so anxious about getting it right that we never actually begin. I wonder whether you've experienced that yourself. Not because you didn't care, perhaps because you cared so much. Picture someone who's been meaning to speak to a close friend. Something they said weeks ago still doesn't sit right. Every day the conversation becomes a little heavier. Not because anything new has happened, but because silence has given the mind more time to fill in the gaps. It's interesting how often the conversations we avoid continue inside our own heads. Perhaps you've noticed that too. One thing that can sometimes help is beginning with your experience rather than your conclusion. That's quite a difference. Difference being, you could say, "Oh, you never listened to me." And then they're saying, "I've noticed I've been feeling unheard lately. I'd really like us to talk about it." The second doesn't guarantee a better outcome, but it often makes it easier for the other person to stay in the conversation rather than immediately defending themselves. Here's something else I've been thinking about. Sometimes we begin conversations believing we already know what the other person thinks. They're going to get angry. They won't understand. Don't really think they'll care. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're not. Curiosity has a way of creating problems that certainty quietly closes. Instead of assuming, perhaps we can ask. Instead of preparing our defense, perhaps we can prepare our attention. That doesn't mean accepting poor behavior. It simply means giving understanding a chance before reaching conclusions. Brené Brown has said, "Clear is kind, unclear is unkind." I think there's something valuable there. Not because honesty is always comfortable, but because uncertainty has a way of growing when important things remain unsaid. Another thing worth considering is timing. There are moments when someone is unlikely to hear us well. Perhaps they're exhausted. Perhaps they're rushing out the door. Or they could be hungry. Or they're already upset about something else. So choosing a better moment isn't avoiding the conversation. Sometimes it's giving it the best chances of being heard. And here's something I think we can forget. Not every difficult conversation ends neatly. Sometimes people need time. Sometimes they need to think. Sometimes they need to sit with what they've heard before responding. That doesn't necessarily mean the conversation went badly. It might simply mean it mattered. I think that's an important distinction. One sentence can stay with someone long after the conversation has ended. Perhaps you've experienced that yourself. Maybe you're even thinking about one now. There's stuff got to be interested for you to notice in the coming days, coming weeks. Not because you need to change anything immediately, just notice. When you find yourself hesitating before saying something important, I wonder what you're protecting: the relationship, the other person, or yourself. You don't have to answer today. Sometimes the question itself is enough. Thank you for spending these few minutes with me. If today's conversation brought someone to mind, perhaps someone you'd appreciate hearing it too, consider sending them a link to the episode. Sometimes the conversations we share become the conversations we finally have. Until next time, take care of yourself.